My name is Philip Martin, and I am the co-owner of Philip Martin Gallery here in Los Angeles with my partner Portia Hine. And I hope you've had a chance to meet Portia either at the fairs or at the gallery. We're really thrilled to have an exhibition of works by Sophie Treppendahl. Sophie Treppendahl is a New Orleans-based painter. And we're really thrilled to have an opportunity to walk through the works with her today. I'm so glad that you can do this with me. How are you doing today, Sophie?
I'm doing great. I'm usually in the studio most days, and today's my home day. So I've just been kind of piddling around the house and went to the coffee shop. So it's just a nice, I don't know, it's kind of a nice little break in the middle of a day where I'm just hanging out with my baby, who's right now with my husband in the other room. So
Yeah, so you have a new baby.
yeah, he you will probably hear him at some point during this. For some Zoom calls lately, I've had him in my lap, and this is a little bit easier to communicate as an adult
Yeah.
without him in my lap.
How, obviously having the baby and the whole thing, I'm a parent too, has been a kind of is a part of the topic of the work. Do you want to talk a bit more about all that and how things came together?
Yeah. So the the starting of making the work for this show like aligned almost perfectly with when I found out that I was pregnant, which was in February of this past year. And I was finishing up work for a show that I was in with you, I think in early April. And so then my brain was shifting into the solo show. And right at that time, it's like, oh, okay, well, here we go. This is perfect. And at first, I was a little bit nervous about painting because I'm an oil painter. And so I shifted around all my materials. I got really intense ventilation. That was the first thought in my brain as soon as I knew I was pregnant. And then the second thought was just, what does this mean for me? And what does this mean for my relationship with my husband? And it was in some, you're anticipating for something that you have no idea what it's going to be. So these paintings some of them are directly about waiting for a child to be born. The one in this one, especially with DJ and I was working on that one the day I went into labor.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, I got home from the hospital, or no, sorry, I got home from my studio to grab a snack and go to a wine event with my husband, and then my water broke. So I was working up until the last minute. But yeah, this work is just all about the things that were in my head and that were in my life leading
Right.
up to being a mom.
So I don't know if this is a dumb question, but as a painter, going through the things in your head and kind of negotiating with them while you're making a painting, that's always part of the process. Was it similar? Was it different?
What do you mean? Like negotiating, like what I'm going to include in the work?
Well, I think to some degree what your inner state is,
Oh,
and also, of course, what you're going to put in the work, either. I mean, both.
I mean, in full transparency, my inner state was a lot of up and down because anyone who's either had a child or who's been pregnant or has been a partner of someone that's pregnant knows that that is a lot of the process. So that was actually a similar tie to the show that I did with you 2 years ago, was just honestly documenting my life. And some of the days I had in the studio were good and some were bad. And so I think some of these paintings were me sort of, I think a lot of them were thinking about what was going to change in the future. I think I was thinking a lot about my body and watching it change. And a lot of these works, you can't necessarily see that I'm pregnant in them, but it was thinking about growing a human is in some ways obviously a really beautiful thing that does actually come from our sensuality,
Yeah.
but it feels like the most unsexual you've ever felt in your life. And I think that this work includes a lot more nude figures than most of my work in the past. And I
Yeah.
think that the tension was really interesting to include in the studio. That this show has nude figures in almost all of the paintings, just because I was thinking a lot about the role of a woman in a painting
Hmm.
and the role of a woman as a person and as a mom, and the how those two things relate and almost don't relate at all.
Yeah. Do you want to expand a little bit on on the role of women in paintings and what that might mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the trope of a reclining woman is something that I've been mulling over for a while. I think that that's something that especially men have painted
Hmm.
a lot, primarily in history. I went to see a show by I always say her name wrong, Paula something
Oh,
Becker.
yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
why
Yeah.
am I blanking in the middle part of her name?
Yeah. Yeah.
Paula
Yeah.
Moderson Becker.
Yeah.
Um, and I went to see a show by her
That at
this
the Neue Gallery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the fall.
Yeah.
And they had this painting of her that said it was done in the early 1900s. It said it was the first female nude self-portrait, and I just started laughing because I was like, that's not true. That is not true. That's a joke, because I think that that's something that women have been painting for a long time, using their own body as the
Yeah.
muse
Yeah.
or as the model. And so I just think that um, on that same trip when I was in New York, I went to the Met and I kept seeing all of these images of Virgin and Child and Venus with squirting milk out of her breast into like a baby's into Cupid's mouth, and it was just really
Yeah.
interesting to see that. I feel like there's sexual images of women and then there's very unsexual images of women, although
Yeah.
Venus is sort of this beautiful in between. And
Yeah.
I think all of that was in my head while I was working.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. In terms of, yeah. So I'm not sure what the best follow-up question is
Yeah.
that I have to that. Just thinking about it, because yeah, the notion that someone would say this is the first self-portrait by a woman, you're right. I mean, that's that's just that's an absurd thing to say. And I don't know if I should be surprised that someone would miss the way in which that's obviously not true.
I mean, I don't, not that we necessarily have a record of who did the first female
Sure.
self-portrait in history, but like at the very least, they existed even if they weren't shown in museums. So
Well,
it was
it's just ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. But I think it's almost amazing that it made it past the editor in some sense. But
right, right.
so you want to talk about some of the pictures that we're looking at, here in the show?
Yeah. This one particular that we're looking at now, Summer Blues.
Sure.
This one was me. It's called Summer Blues because this was a summer when I was living here in New Orleans and I did not leave town enough. And so this is actually a painting about having summer blues because I am obsessed with swimming. I'm obsessed with being in bodies of water. And
Yeah.
this, instead of being in a body of water, I was painting bodies of
Yeah.
water. And
Yeah.
so it was more just about it was a painting when I was a little bit sad and I wanted to make something that was transporting me into water.
It's a painting also of one of your trips to a body of water is there in the
Exactly.
background. Yeah.
In January, I went to Guatemala because I wanted to go somewhere where I could swim, and so, but in the summer, I somehow didn't make enough time to swim when it's nice in the rest of the country. So,
What about paintings in your work and the conversation between books and paintings? Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
yeah, I mean, I live, as you said, in New Orleans. I do not live in a city that has endless access to as many museums as might be in a major city. I mean, we do have a couple of great museums here, but the honest thing is that the most art that I encounter is sometimes on the internet, of course, but
Mhm.
majority of the time, if I see someone on the internet that I like, I immediately buy a book because I want to have a tangible object to look at in my studio. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll spend $150 on an art book and then it's immediately covered in paint because I have them all over my table.
Right.
Because that for me is the best way that I want to encounter work. It's how I can see the true colors of a painting.
Mhm.
And so the reason why there's so many in here is because they are how they're where the paintings come from.
Yeah.
Um, there are some paintings that are motifs that I repeat a lot. Like this one here, that boat is a painting by Andre Derain that I saw at the Musée d'Orsay. And I just I is that was it the Musée d'Orsay? The one right by the Louvre. Is that
Sure.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just when I saw his work that wasn't his impressionist work, he does a lot of beautiful nude figures that are also in some of my paintings. And I just love that boat painting because it reminds me of all the steamboats here in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But the rough painting on the really vague painting on the mantle, that's a man with his arms like this.
Yeah.
That's that's a painting my mom did in her
Yeah.
house, the man she saw in a magazine.
Yeah.
Every object in these is something specifically in my brain that has a lot of meaning to it, but it's just sort of funny because how would you know what they are? And
But
that's
you
kind of the
also do move things around. They're not necessarily, you're not painting you're not rendering a scene per se.
No, exactly. I mean, this behind me, as you can see, like my
Mhm.
house, because I'm in New Orleans in an old house, every room has mantles. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of these objects have shown up in paintings, but I'm not necessarily setting up the object itself. It's a combination of things in my home, things in my brain, and things I've seen in the world that I just collage together.
Well, also, I think you're also activating the painting, learning about the painting,
Mhm.
finding spaces in the painting, pushing
Yeah.
those spaces, color relationships.
Yeah. And I think that I love for me, like in the paintings, I really like to combine what I'm thinking about in the piece itself. So here in the front of this one, you can see drawing the female figure. It's a
Mhm.
book that I got of a
Yeah.
anatomical study of how to draw the female figure because this was the first time I ever painted like a nude self-portrait
Huh?
and or I think I've painted them before. So let's say the first time I exhibited one, to be honest about the statement. And I think there's also I'm trying to remember who's on the ground. I think that's a David Park book because there's a lot of beautiful paintings that he's done of nude figures. But I'm often the works have stories to all of them, and this obviously has a lot of paintings from the show that we did
Mhm.
in.
Yeah. And then, of course, going back to it, not only are you putting objects in the painting, but here you are putting yourself in the painting,
Right.
and returning back to that conversation of the female nude, being a woman, painting a woman, this whole,
Mhm.
what does that feel like?
I mean, it feels. I mean, it feels funny. It felt funny to literally lay on the ground in my messy studio and like
Yeah,
take off my clothes. And I'm hoping that like the handyman doesn't walk into my studio. It's really,
yeah,
it's
sure.
this is well, this scene exactly didn't exist. I mean, every part of it had to
Right.
be set up. And
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, at the time I was still. I think this one was at 17 weeks pregnant. I was
yeah,
still like just starting to tell people, just starting to show it.
yeah,
It was this weird. It was just interesting that it was a lot of thoughts in my head about my body, and I think that painting this felt in a way. It felt like I was celebrating myself, the act of creating a human, and kind of reclining the reclining nude figure in a painting. I read a couple of essays, and what they were talking about was the idea of women being reclining in paintings as a form of passivity and inaction. That
hmm
it is almost a way of saying that um, she's not doing much. She's there. She's resting. She's
yeah,
posing. She's
yeah,
not in action. And
yeah.
what is more in action than creating life?
Well, also, I mean, I love in this picture the holding of the pen in your mouth, or
Mm-hmm.
the fact the figure's doing that. It's just such a like active. It makes this a very active figure in this really thoughtful way that I come back to. Um, Very kind of timeless capturing of that feeling of deep interiority. That's really beautiful. And I'm
Thank
also sparked too to think about, obviously I've not been a pregnant woman, but I've spent 9 months with a pregnant woman. And it is amazing how many people want to touch you, how many
you.
people want to talk to you, how many people want to tell you about their experiences, and
Yeah,
they want to kind of expand their inner self outward, kind of into you. It's like you're a crucible for this whole thing that's going on. And I suppose these kinds of things happen all the time. But it's like you're suddenly, and as an artist, you're kind of in that way too, in the sense that, like, you know, the artist is sort of a stand-in for creativity for everybody. We're all
right.
creative. Like, people will be like, I love art, but I'm not creative. And obviously I'm like, that obviously you're creative. That doesn't make any sense. You're like a brain surgeon or whatever they are. But anyway, I don't know if that resonates, but another
Oh, yeah. I mean, the amount of times I will say there's the amount of times that a slightly tipsy woman who has children at a bar, whenever I'm very sober, obviously, has come up to me and started talking to me about
oh.
rests or whatever. It's so funny because one woman was like 30 minutes and I did not know her. And I was like,
Yeah.
I have to go see my friend who's meeting me. And it's just, and I will say, as a woman now, I want to give advice to whoever is in that experience.
Yeah, right.
You're right. Like people want to come up to you and talk to you because also it's a really, I think a lot of the reason why I was excited to have a kid is that it's something that it is one of the most human experiences you can ever have. It's something we've been doing, obviously, since the
Yeah.
beginning of creation. And I think that it's really cool to experience that and to be able to talk to someone else who's experienced that. So,
Yeah. Well, this is I should say this is after Gustin's studio,
mhm.
which of course is interesting to have that interaction with another artist. Um, no, I was just thinking, like, you have this. I think it's one of those things too that, of course, as a painter, you have this intensely personal interior experience. And part of learning how to be a painter is learning how to not listen to what other people tell you about your painting. Like, and
Yeah, that's
I don't mean that we don't value and love that, because we value and love it. I mean, of course, but it's just a disconnect that's at the heart of the experience, that you will always paint, that painting is discovering this thing you don't know about yourself.
mm,
And having people tell you things it can be really amazing. It can be revelatory, but it's not the same somehow as what it takes to just be doing that. And somehow there's a parallel with being a parent, because the first thing my only advice to parents is that this is your experience, so make sure you don't, listen to what anybody else says. I
oh,
don't.
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I think that that is like we were saying about this, like creating art. I mean, for me, I don't have really anyone in my studio when I'm making these things other than my husband and occasionally my mom. And I think that it is interesting because I'm intentionally very protective of it. I really don't like people to come into a studio when my work's in progress because it's almost similar to feeling naked. I'm like, no, 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 you can't see it. It's not done. It's
Yeah.
not dressed, and I think it
Yeah.
is, I have been really affected by people commenting on works in progress.
Uh-huh.
And I think that for me, it is, I do once the painting's done, we can have a whole conversation about it. But before
Right.
it's done, I can't hear what you want to say about it because
Right.
it's mine. I'm
Yeah.
making it. But
Yeah.
now let's talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
get into the nitty gritty.
Well, then you kind of need to, because you kind of need to you really learn a lot because it's a communicative act. I mean, here we are in front of viewers, obviously, right now. This is what we're doing. It's a communicative act. So it doesn't exist without other people kind of having that. It does, of course, but I mean, it's a very powerful other part of it to have other people interact with
And I think that's the thing. I think I need to trust myself in why I started making the painting,
it.
finish it all the way through. And then sometimes when I get feedback, it'll affect the next work, but I try to let that piece itself exist in the way that it was intended.
Yeah, yeah. This is a wonderful painting also, and a number of them are sort of describe how many weeks you're
Mm-hmm.
at.
Yeah. Yeah, this one I can't remember how many it was, maybe 20 something. And yeah, this one I think for me the fun puzzle was to figure out how to have the figure there, but almost not as a minor part of the painting. So
I think the solution with the warm light separating them, the warm color it makes a ton of sense. It's
hmm,
beautiful.
thank you.
I'm not skilled at um, Zoom, by the way. So if you want to look at, there might be comments in the chat or whatnot. I don't know if you're good at that kind of thing, but at any rate,
Um, I
not
don't
com-
see it, so we're good. Yeah.
there might be some people raising their hand or something. I don't know. This piece is called Bedside Table. I was thinking in some of these hexagonal tables about the Matisse tabletop at MoMA, which is,
Oh, by the way, I looked at the wrong thing. I do see comments here, so we can get to them now or at the end.
well, that you might also be like, I don't want it to talk about any of those things.
Oh no, no, no. I'm going
Yeah,
to.
I'm not very good at I've never figured that out.
Well,
Uh
let's finish what you said, and then I can answer some of these.
sure. Yeah, yeah. You can also ignore what I ask you.
I'm actually going to ignore all of you. I'm going to go hang out with my
Okay,
kid.
sounds good. All right, this is over. Okay. No, but I was thinking about the Matisse painting at MoMA of the table that's been turned up like that to form a shape that's a field against which objects and colors can be laid out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a really nice, I don't know. For some reason I love the flattening of a tabletop like that, but I still want you to be able to see I don't know, I still wanted to be able to paint the drawer at the bottom. It's slightly more abstracted of a shape than what I normally do.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was the first painting, or I guess the only painting that I made fully after giving birth.
Mhm.
This one I made at home in a little home studio, and and yeah, I mean, it obviously has remnants of life after having a baby.
Well, Cezanne obviously often also has that front drawer. I love that the Goodnight Moon is in here. You did a wonderful painting called Goodnight Studio, and I always love the color kind of conversation. And also, we often meet the authors of the various books that are in your painting. What's that like for you to have somebody be like, "I wrote that book"?
Oh, I mean, it's crazy. Actually, I just got a message from an artist that I included in the last show with you. Her name is Jessie Klein, and we've met. Last time I was in LA, and she's now going to be in New Orleans, and we're going to get to meet up when she's here at a book talk. I
That's so
mean, and this writer, Catherine Rickett, she lives in Philadelphia. I read this book, and I like. Funny story about the book is that I could not find any positive books about being an artist and being a mom when I was
cool.
looking I kept reading all these books from maybe 30 years ago that were all about
Wow.
as a woman your art, how much you're sacrificing being an artist, and I was losing my mind because I was like, no, I know that I want to do this, and I know that I want it in my process. I'm excited for my brain to change. So I
Wow.
actually ended up calling in to a New Yorker podcast, and they recommended that book.
Good for you.
I then wept the whole time I read it, and then now have connected with the writer on Instagram. So thank you, internet.
Well, I mean, that must be in the closet with all the nude self-portraits somewhere. The cave.
Exactly. Okay,
Sleep away.
I'm
Uh,
going to read two of the questions in
yeah,
here. If you want to do
yeah.
that real quick. Someone named Elsa said, I'm so curious about how you work with color, Sophie, how you choose your families of color for a painting or paintings, like how all the tones have a similar cast. I would also love to know if you ever work from photographs. I pretty much, I have no idea how I choose the colors. Normally for this show, I use pink, which is not something I've really used. I think I'd only made one pink painting before this show. And I was looking at Matisse Pink Studio was the main painting that I was looking at this year.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that it's a pink painting that has really good royal blue and really good like phthalo green. And I think that became the colors that I couldn't get out of my head. I kept trying to make a painting in a different color. And for this show, I came back to pink. And for the
Yeah.
show we did before, I came back to yellow, and it's just whatever I'm feeling, I guess. And then if I ever work in photographs, yes, I work in photographs a lot. I work from probably 15 photographs of painting, I would say.
Yeah.
And then do I work out the compositions and colors digitally? Amy McCormick, oh, hi, I know you online, asked. And I typically draw them. And then I often use an iPad during the process to edit colors as I go.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I put this one back because obviously this one is very specifically color driven, and this is just a fantastic painting. And the way we installed it, I think really works. A lot of people have been like, I love this painting. I think they can really see it in the show.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah. I did one other painting that is in this color key, and it is a lot brighter than, but inspired by a painting by Alex Katz called, I think it's called 4 p.m. I'm pretty sure it was in the show we had at the Guggenheim last year, 2 years ago. I don't, however time works. And that painting, it was more of a yellow gray or yellow brown, but I just loved this really similar colored painting, and then all you can see is the light.
Mhm.
And for me, it's extremely hard to do a painting in this color palette. It's the second one I've done, but I think that I've made on the side around 8 other paintings to get
Oh,
to
wow.
this one, to get to this one. And the painting I did last at Jack Hanley Gallery in
Yeah.
2023, that was similar color,
Mhm.
because you cannot, if anyone's worked with yellow,
Mm.
you can't get it back. You can't, if you go darker, you have to go all the way back to white to get yellow again because it's so transparent. And so
Right.
this painting, I mean, this one it kind of has to be one take and one pass, or
Wow.
pretty close to one pass. So it, I don't know. So color wise, it's a big challenge, but for me, that's the fun. I want to do another one soon because it's a puzzle
Yeah.
when you look at your palette, you're trying to make a green, like like that portrait at the bottom, the woman, where it's a slightly green background.
Hmm.
I mean, you dip one hair of your brush into a green to get that change, and I think it's really fun to do. Um,
This
and
painting,
oh, you go.
no, no, go
Sorry.
ahead. I was just, after you.
Oh, just the figure is one that I used in another painting in the past. It's a pose that I did in a photo, and then I really like the standing figure with the towel, and I've used that in one other painting
And
before.
that was the other painting that you're referring to as a painting of a trip to Europe,
It
like
was a trip in
after swimming.
Yeah, I think it was a trip in Guatemala, is this specific
Mhm.
pose. But yeah,
Yeah,
I for some reason I love having the figure in the doorway because I think
totally.
that it makes it's there, but it's not the main story.
Well, I like also this feeling that it could be filled with light, and it's just the saturation of light, but also it could be a memory or, a dream. Like those
Mhm.
aspects of how it activates that is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Um, Yeah, I think, also as a parent and just, I think there's just so much in this show that I just have never really seen really just painted before. Or, I mean, of course, motherhood and those kinds of things are themes, but there's a kind of just straightforwardness that I really like. I want to say it's brave or something, but then I don't want to say that because that seems kind of stupid. I think I'd prefer to say that I really appreciate I also don't want to say normalization because that also seems stupid, but I just really appreciate the like the matter of factness of this major part of our lives that's in these paintings. I think it's a real it's just really it's just really heartfelling in a really nice, wonderful way. So that's one of my reactions
Thank you.
to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if I would talk about the fact that it was about being
Mhm.
pregnant when I was painting it. I didn't know if that would be in the foreground or the background. I think that
Yeah.
the work, it's somewhere a mix, which is why I included titles that had weeks in it, because as you're pregnant, all you can think is weeks. Um, you're every moment you're like, I'm 17 and a half weeks,
Yeah, right.
um,
Yeah,
it's
I've
ridiculous.
never had around that early childhood. You're right. You have so many like week calculations. I'm just
I know.
like, oh my God, how many months is that? Or yeah, I don't know.
Once I got over like 11 weeks, I was like, he's 2 months, he's 3 months, he's 4 months now that he's out in the world. Um, but yeah, I mean, a challenge for me in this show was to do much more direct portraits.
Yeah,
I often have figures in my paintings that I've been incorporating them in the last couple of years. I went many years without having any figures. And
yeah,
I think that for me, it felt important at this moment in a way of, you know, I I'm an adult. I am me. I am like very securely in this place in my life. I think before you're a mom, you have all these ideas of the way you're going to change and how you're going to prepare yourself and how you're going to be different one day when you have a kid. And I'll, respond to emails on time, and I'll like have read all of the, masters in all of the classic books. And instead, like I'm here, I'm 33 years old. I'm a mom now, and I think that the paintings have a lot more of me in them or my figure in them, because when you're a mom, you're very directly facing the fact that like
yeah,
here we are.
sure.
It's very blunt and a very direct stage in life, and you're very sober.
Yeah, right. This is, well, is this painting to any degree based on the Bonnard painting?
So yeah, this is based on a Bonnard painting. Somebody else asked me if it was based on Balthus, and after I saw that painting, of the girl with her
I
hands like
don't,
this.
I don't know Balthus that well. Well, I think about Bonnard because there's a very horizontal Bonnard that is like that. That's what I thought of. I
That's
don't
which one.
Balthus. Yeah.
Yes. This is based on that one,
Okay.
for sure. Her arms are up, but they're not doing her hair. But that
Yeah.
painting, this is a similar color palette to it. And the thing I love about that painting that I couldn't pull off in this one is that behind her is a very long horizontal painting of a
Sure.
reclining nude. And I loved it, but visually I needed
Yeah.
different
Also,
objects.
that painting is, it's only similar because I mean, it's only I don't even know why they don't look anything like each other. I mean, the Bonnard painting is so purple too, like in that crazy weird purple, black, yellow thing that he does, where you're just like, seriously.
Well, I think has another version of it, and maybe I'm thinking of a different painting than you. There's another version that has a lot of yellows in it, but I'll send
Well,
it
it
to you.
is yellow. It's got tons of yellow, but then it's also got like that blue black thing.
Oh yeah, I love Bernard, but sometimes his color combinations, to me, I'm like, oh, I could never pull that off. You do great, but like
Well, those giant masses of black in Bonnard, you're just like, whoa.
I
But
know.
yeah, I have a great new Bonnard book. This again, I was thinking about the Matisse. I
Oh
think
yeah,
also, I mean, another thing I think that at least happened for me when I had my child is like, you're just like, you just realize your parents just tried. I kind of immediately was like, oh, I can't blame them for anything that I've been blaming them for all this time, which was really helpful. I was like, seriously, they were just trying to like get by, and
oh,
like, you know,
when
have you?
he's crying sometime, and we have a pretty relatively easy baby compared to, the
Sure.
things you're warned about. But when he's crying and you're having to rock him and it's 3 a.m, I'm just like, the fact that this many people are alive in the world is crazy.
Yeah.
That this many people, just to be truly fed and kept alive, is, you realize, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not been a struggle. We're feeding him, keeping him alive, but you realize that like every person had to be loved,
Yeah.
because
Well,
it takes a lot of love to be that patient.
yeah, my son is 16 now, and so it's this amazing thing where you also kind of have to be like, okay, it's his journey, and you're
Oh,
not,
right.
I actually had to go through therapy really so I could learn how to like let him do his own thing because I wanted you want to quote, help and direct them. But my therapist was like, you're just trying to protect your younger self. And I was like, oh, that's right. Which is an interesting thing to imagine yourself as your younger self, you know, trying,
Yeah.
whatever. So this one has a different color palette. I love that just because I assume it's because it's a pool or it's being at the pool.
Yeah, I tried this one in a couple of different color palettes and they couldn't work. I actually wanted to paint this for a few years and then I just kept playing with it and I got to this one
Where
and I felt like it worked.
where is
But
this pool?
it's called the New Orleans Athletic Club. It is the hidden gem of the city. It's right in the French Quarter.
I
Um,
missed this one because this looks very old.
oh, it is. It's 150 years old.
Oh,
It's
that is so cool. I
gorgeous. It
lived in
has
New
a
Orleans, obviously, but I've never seen this. When I look at it, it looks like something you'd see in London to me.
well. Let's just say that the gym has a bar in it. Okay, we have a couple of other questions from some of
Yeah,
my
and
friends.
also we're basically at the end. So if there's
Okay,
anything
cool.
that you want to say that you haven't talked about yet.
Well, let's answer some questions. Some of these are my good buddies that are in here, which is so fun. My friend Adam Eddy, an amazing painter, he says, "Hi Sophie, do you fully realize reference images made before you start painting, or do you add things that add and take things away as the painting develops?" Yeah, the paintings start with maybe the rough composition figured out, or there'll just be one thing I'm excited about, but nothing is certain, and rarely is it based actually on a real scene. I mean, this one I think I was excited about. I'm going to turn my computer around real quick and show you a painting that's in my house.
Uh-oh,
This is
breaking the third wall. Here it
I
comes.
know. Okay, don't look at the mess down here. Painting by a friend of mine. Uh, they're I think
That's
Aster.
that's very Bonardi.
Yeah, Aster Sorrell. They live in New York. And I love this painting. I'll go back to it real quick. I really love the edge of the table like that. And it's very Bernard. And I think I look at this painting all the time and I love how it is. You should look up their work on Instagram or online. Their name is also Ryan Sorrell. But I looked at that composition and I was thinking about having the edge of a table. And then I just placed the objects. This one I actually made the entire painting on the phone with my best friend. And so I don't know, but none of these objects were actually there. I was just trying to decide it needs black here, it needs red here.
Yeah,
And so
I think about the Joan Brown painting things on a carpet. There are these like late
Mhm.
50s ones, and she did a couple paintings of a big field, and then the big field is paired with just a bunch of crap that's on there.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of a painting of just a bunch of crap. That's
Yeah,
often what's in there
yeah.
too. Okay, another one. Can you talk about the pool piece more? Tell us more about this pool. Yes, from a New Orleans athletic club. And I think if you come to New Orleans, I think you can just like go visit with a day pass, or you can
If you
message
want to come
me.
to a good pool, there's also the LA Athletic Club, which is downtown, and it's on like the 10th floor of a skyscraper, an older one, and it's
I've looked
pretty
at
neat. That's pretty
yeah.
neat.
Yeah, more pools in life. There should be more pools in New Orleans, actually. Most of them are private. And the nude with you contemplating the blank page as a pregnant woman, so poignant to me, all the possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually intended to draw like the beginning of the figure on the page. And I think at the end, I ended up leaving it blank. I don't even know why I did, but I kind of like that it was, I don't know, it's kind of nice being blank. I hadn't started yet. Um, Zoe asks, I don't have a question, but I wanted to say that my family loves your work. Oh, that's so nice. We were introduced to your beautiful work at Art Basel through Work Table at night and have been obsessed ever since. My sister recently bought her first ever art piece, Flowers for Low,
Mhm.
and my family purchased Yellow Bedroom. Wow. Thank you so much to
Yeah.
your family.
Yes, these are some wonderful people that are writing to you right now.
Oh, well, Flowers for Low, my son is Lorenzo, so they were Flowers for Lorenzo.
Oh,
And that's what I was thinking about. And that painting has a little snippet of another LA artist named Blair Saxton Hill. and it's in there. And then the book open is Mary Fedden, who's one of my favorite artists in the world.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw that you did, I'd forgotten, but actually I forgot that there were a few more paintings that we can look at. And these are a couple of paintings that you just completed. We can run through them quickly. I have to say, if I'm allowed to, well, I'm going to say it and then you'll have to tell me that you painted them with your baby in the carrier. That's what you said, which is like so rock
yeah, either
star.
in
I'm
the
like so impressed.
carrier or on the ground with this little like play
It's amazing.
thingy. I don't know what you call that, play mat. Yeah, I really thought that I was going to be tired and exhausted and uninspired and like dreading getting back into the studio. And instead, all of these paintings happened. This is 7 small paintings I made in the last month, even with having a lot of friends in town and not working very much. I have
Maybe
no
get
idea.
a new pair of shoes, as the saying goes.
It's so funny. You have no idea how your brain's going to be. And I've actually been really enjoying having a little distraction because it makes me sit back on the couch while I'm feeding him and look at the painting and figure out what's wrong with it. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's really important with these things. At least that was one thing I found a lot of comfort in is recognizing that you're just really not in charge. It's good to know that about life in general.
yeah,
But in terms of parenting and just people being healthy and happy is such a huge goal. I mean, that's a huge thing for all of us to just remember how lucky we really are.
yeah.
Um, I love this painting. I have to say, this
Thank
is like a total love this painting. I think this is a fantastic painting. And I love the way that you're starting to mess around with the foliage scales and different parts in this. I think this is a killer painting. Love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it. It's obviously related to the painting I did before, the same table layout and
Yeah.
all based on that Matisse painting. The name is shared with it of a marble table or the rose marble table. And I just, I don't know. I love that color. I
Yeah.
love the table shape. And I
I
have
love
been,
those shears. They're beautiful. One
yeah,
thing that Aaron Morse said, who's one of the artists that is also in the gallery, is he just really likes it's the way he would say it. Like it's just you see just how the paint went down. Like you just really feel it. And I really that's a huge compliment from him. And I think it's so true. Like you have this kind of very, very sophisticated, but also just ease to follow. That's just really such a pleasure. That you do care. I mean, as you say, I guess it's because you do 8 paintings to make one yellow painting.
exactly. Well, I just read this piece last night in the New Yorker about Celia Paul. It's a piece written by Karla Knausgaard about her paintings, and what he talks about is the tension between a object in a moving, changeable world, like a
Yeah.
chair. We're talking about in a
Mhm.
world that's never still,
Yeah.
versus a painting of that still object
Yeah.
in constant motion, and that a painting is many moments combined together. And I think that for me, that's my favorite artists are ones where you can see how it was painted. And I wear my cards on my sleeve. There's no secrets. I'm not doing a fancy glazing. You too can paint. Um,
Well,
there's two
yeah.
more questions that we'll answer quickly, and then I'm sure we should let
Yeah,
everyone.
we are. I've already kept you way too long, but I
Oh,
appreciate it.
you're good. I'm just like I said, this is my day off. I'm just sipping coffee, hanging out. I'm intrigued by your use of space. Can you talk about that? Um, my use of space. How do I use space? I mean, I think for me,
Well,
I think
you could start by describing this painting. You've got like a crazy mirror. You've got behind the mirror. You've got the whatever's through the window. There's like a
yeah,
banana. I mean, you
yeah.
feel free. Feel
I
free to
mean,
get started.
my rule for painting, and I think that this is not just my rule, is that your eye should never stay still on a painting. I
Hmm.
never want there to be, when you look at a painting, like that's why when I include a figure, I rarely can paint just a straightforward portrait, even though those are some of my favorite paintings, because
Yeah.
I don't want you to look at a painting and just look at their face. I
Yeah.
want you to have no idea where to look first. And I
Oh,
want, as soon as you look at it, for you to be distracted by something else. And I think, so I think that's the rule for me. I think it involves a lot of diagonals. That's why I started using light as a way of abstracting a painting, because sometimes you have a really straightforward painting with too many up and down lines.
yeah.
And I think that for me, I needed I don't want anything parallel necessarily to the edges of the painting. I want you to kind of feel a little chaotic, but have there still be, what am I trying to say? Harmony, I guess.
Yeah. That
So I
is,
guess the
that's
shape.
fascinating. That's quite profound.
Oh, wow, thank you. Well, I guess for me, the lines are always chaotic, but the colors are maybe in harmony. It's maybe
Yeah.
about, maybe that's kind of where I find, where I meet in the middle, is that I want you not to feel like you're losing your mind, but I do want you to feel a little boggled.
Right.
So, and then there's one more. My wife and I are torn, so we ended up buying two. Oh wow! After the dinner party and Nude 17 weeks. We love your work, and you're
Yes,
the
there's
coolest.
even more special people commenting.
Oh, thank you, Ben. That's so
And these
nice.
people these people really like the work. I have to say, the people that are commenting in there, we've had some amazing interaction.
That's so nice. Wow. I
It's
mean,
really nice.
I will say, your purchases go straight to my son and his diapers and us living our life. And it really means a lot that I get to, I mean, I still can't believe that I get to be a painter as my job. It's completely wild. So
Well, you do work hard and you have a good personality, and those two things go a long way.
thank
And
you.
you're open, and really try to believe in yourself and believe in the process. I mean, that's the trifecta right there.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for. Oh, did Ben have an additional comment, or was he just enjoy saying that they love them so much?
Well, they were just saying that they love them, which is
Oh, fantastic! Yes, well,
such a nice comment. Yeah.
we just had a wonderful interaction. Yeah. Anyway, it's really amazing. I have to say, as another thing, is to thank you for the people that I meet through the work, which is great. And many thanks for being here and
Yeah.
joining us. And also, of course, our hearts really go out to everyone that's been affected here in LA, with all the fires and everything that's happening in the world. But I do want to say to you, Sophie, I really appreciate your doing the show during this time and helping us in our community, because it's very meaningful. I did have a person who came in after the election who was sort of like, I think, wondering what art meant, and I was like, I didn't want to say anything to them because I didn't want to not value what they were saying. But at a gallery like ours, you really, there's a real community there, and art really does something remarkable for people, and it's very meaningful. And it really does give people opportunities, if they wish, to let that flow into their lives and function. There's a reason why personal and individual expression is important, even if the corporations and chatbots and various politicians would like to stop that. So anyway, sorry, diatribe, but thank you so much for doing it. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really nice to, you send these things out in the world and you make them. And I think to add to what you're saying, I think you make stuff, and as an artist, I think everyone wonders if it's an important thing to be doing. Sometimes sometimes can feel like such navel gazing. And it's really nice that I know what other people's work does for me. And
Yes.
it's baffling that other people might see my work and feel something. And I'm just glad. I'm glad that people want to look at it. I still don't know how, but it means a lot. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for everything. And thanks for everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions about it, just feel free to give me an email or whatever. And we have other big projects with Sophie coming up, because we're going to hopefully do a project with her in Miami in the fall, at the end of the year, and we'll do some other things. So stay tuned for everything that's happening. Thanks so much, Sophie. I really appreciate your taking the time to be with us today, and I hope you have a great weekend and not too much baby barf on you or whatever. Keep
it's
it
a
rolling.
fashion statement.
Keep it rolling. Okay.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.